Data. I feel like I need to take a deep breath on this one because all ABA programs, we need to take data. But what does that actually mean? We all stress out about the importance of data. But what is the importance of data collection if someone is not actively analyzing that data? Like you can take data for the sense of taking data, but that doesn't make sense to me. Once we have programs and we have data collection in place for our learners, how do we ensure that those data are effective and we're making those database decisions?
Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna.
We're behavior analysts who create weekly content about how to teach kids with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about database decisions. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
Let's face it, everywhere takes data these days, right? Even our phones are collecting data on us. Not that we want to really hear that, but they are. They're collecting data on our surfing habits, what internet sites we're looking at, what our social media habits are like, but not only really the content, but what time of day we're surfing the most, right? They may not have actual people who are analyzing the data and making those database decisions, but you'd better believe that that software is interpreting that data and they're making, meaningful bits of information from that.
Basically what marketing is based on, right? Data. So when we talk about data and analyzing data, what do we really mean? We're going to be doing a deep dive in October's CEU on how to supervise ABA programs and be making database decisions so that our clients and our students make progress. So you should for sure join us for that. It is going to be on October 10th at 12 p.m.
Well, last month's CEU was all about developing the right data collection method to show us what we want to know. And October's CEU is going to be differentiated a little bit more about now that we have that data in place, how do we analyze that data and what are we looking for?
So we're going to talk a little bit about that here. Like, what is the importance of like we've made the most beautiful data sheets and we've put it all in place. Now, what do we do on an ongoing basis to ensure progress? So we have to, every time we go and we supervise an ABA session and we're there and we want to be, reading the data, look at the data. It's something you could do together with a parent, together with the ABA therapist. And you want to be looking for things like trends, for things that are telling you that, the data are moving in the right direction, which is great. Not always is that the case. Sometimes you may be analyzing the data because it's not moving in the right direction and it's stagnant, or the data are decreasing in ways that we don't want them to be. And then this is where our job comes in, and we are truly problem solvers in trying to figure out what do the data mean and how can I do something now with this data.
Usually, when I'm seeing a student, the first thing I do is say to the therapist, you know what, I'm not analyzing your teaching therapist. I really want to see what the student is capable of. And then I say, okay, show the student off. What are your most favorite programs to run? And where's the student making progress? And the therapist is usually like, yeah, let's start with that. And we see some really great programs. And it also gives me some reinforcement because my favorite is looking at graphs that are increasing, right? I don't want to problem solve as soon as I get there. I want to be like, yeah, this is amazing. But really taking a look at those graphs and going, okay, so is this kiddo learning within a few days, or is it taking a couple weeks to learn? Or are they mastering things, one day it's 100%, and then the next day they move on to another condition and it's still 100%. And then the next day they move on, and it's still 100%. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 weeks of teaching, but the student hasn't really learned anything because they're at 100%. There's no real teaching that's happening. They're just flying through this. So really looking at using those data, even the positive things, and going, ooh, do we really have to advance the student more?
Yeah, so we're looking at those kind of things that tell us the learner can learn quicker. So we can consolidate a couple teaching steps. Or maybe this program is a little bit too boring, which is why they may be getting, 90% the first day. And because the mastery criteria say it has to be over 2 days, by the second and third day, they're dropping because they were so bored. So we're looking at those kind of trends. And then we might say, well, let me just probe, a couple things and move them on to either another program or another target. Another thing we might be looking for is other reasons why the data might not be moving. So sometimes we may have the data being stagnant, and when we look deeper into it, it might be because the program is not being run as often as it should be. So that's not something you may be able to, get from a first glance on the data sheet. But if you look closer into the dates, well, he had therapy 5 days a week, but I'm only seeing, 2 days worth of data a week on this graph. So then I may have to start asking more questions. Well, why wasn't it run more often, or what's happening? It may be that the data aren't moving because sessions are happening, too close to lunch and the client is starving. And those are the kind of things that you want to really be looking for beyond what the graph is telling you and trying to figure out what really is this graph saying.
I always put a program checkoff list in place as well. So that's really just what programs did you run this session? And it's great because what it's supposed to do is have, the therapist check off everything and give them a guideline of where, what programs need to be run. And they're supposed to look at the day before and go, okay, which programs weren't run? And I'm going to do those first. And then I'll get into the other programs. But often what I see on that program data or that program checkoff list is, 2 or 3 programs that just aren't run at all. And I look at that, and even that program checkoff list is a flag for me to say, okay, therapists hate running this program. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
It might be because they don't know how to run it and they're not comfortable with it. Or it might be because the learner just cannot stand this program because it's either too easy or too hard. So those are also the ones you want to look at and really problem solve and go, okay, there's something going on here. Let's see what that is.
And most of our programs, we have data across operants. So we'll be able to see, based on the data telling us like at what step is this student really struggling? Are they really struggling with the tacting level? And that might mean that we can then put more programs in to build up their tacting ability. Or they might be really struggling with discrimination. And we're able to kind of pull it apart based on the data sheets that we put in place, which hopefully tell us that, and then be able to teach more or support more or move them through some programs faster because they're doing really well with them.
And sometimes you've got to look at certain steps and go, well, maybe this isn't age appropriate. Like Shira said, we love to teach across operants because it just makes sense for learners. It teaches that comprehension piece. It's not just memorizing rote questions. But sometimes you go from, matching to receptive to tacting, and then, a learner gets to the intraverbal level and can't do it, even though you've put in the receptive piece of it, you've put in the matching, you've put in the pictures, they can't do that intraverbal. And then I go, oh, wait, they're only 3. Most 3-year-olds in general cannot do an intraverbal. So you really do need to look at the age as well.
And sometimes you're looking at the data and it's telling you that you may not have even chosen the right data collection method, you could be collecting data on frequency of problem behavior and it's not changing at all. But parents are telling you that it's just gotten so much worse and nothing's helping. And then you may want to say, well, maybe I should really be collecting duration data or something. And maybe tweaking those changes to how you're collecting data. For more on that, we have our measuring progress video. So check that out.
I had a student one time who was engaging in tantrum behavior, and we were taking data on the frequency. And we had such a pretty graph. The frequency was going down, and it was so beautiful that, the student went from engaging in, I don't know, like 10 tantrums a day to like 2. They're still engaging in 2 tantrums a day, but it was beautiful. It was like 10 to 2. That's amazing. But like you said, the frequency, or sorry, the duration went up, and we weren't measuring that. So, the tantrums used to only be a couple minutes and they increased to 15, 20 minutes, and it was significant. So from the parents' perspective, they were saying these tantrums are increasing, not decreasing. And my pretty graph is saying no, they're decreasing, take a look. So making sure that you're looking at that as well.
And you also want to make sure that your data are correct, right? They at least need to be accurate. So sometimes when you go in to supervise a session, you may want to do something called IOA data, which is inter-observer agreement. And that is that you and the ABA therapist, whoever's running the session, are both collecting data. And then you're getting data on the level of accuracy between the comparison. So you may be getting, 80% the same, 90% the same. You want to aim for something around there, so that you know that what you intended to take data on, what the data sheet is supposed to be taking data on, is actually being collected accurately.
It'd be really great somehow if we had some type of really unobtrusive way to record one of our supervision sessions with a student. I don't think we ever could because of confidentiality, but a lot of the times, therapists will say, would you count that as a correct or incorrect response? And I would say, not, well, what are you thinking that is? And we're always constantly talking about what is considered a correct response. So making sure, like Shira said, your data are correct. So if learners aren't making progress, so if you're looking at a graph and the graph is stagnant, which means that, it may have gone up, it might have gone from, 0 to 10 to 40, and then all of a sudden it's like 50, 40, 50, 40, and it's just stagnant. What do you do then? At that point in time, I typically say to the therapist, show me the program. I need to see this one specifically. And when I watch, what I'm looking for is I'm really looking for what the student is doing in terms of, are they making errors? Are they specific errors? Maybe like Shira said, the learner is bored. Like, okay, I've got this. Or maybe it's that I'm teaching in sets. Maybe I'm teaching in sets of 3 or sets of 5. And the student has, learned 2 out of the 3, but just can't get that last one. So little things like that you're looking at as well. My favorite thing to do in a supervision session is say, hey, get out of the way, let me teach. I don't really elbow anybody at all, I promise. But I love to get in there and teach myself, because sometimes just the nuances and what I can see when I'm teaching can help. And you can really look at that way.
So really we are, data detectives when we go in there, when we're trying to figure out what is going on here, what are the data telling us? And that's the most important part in helping our learners achieve real progress.
So in summary today, we talked about making database decisions and how we do that and how we help our learners make real progress. For more information on making database decisions, click the link in and around this video or in the description to join our next live CEU presentation on database supervision, how to make decisions to achieve progress. And it's on Thursday, October 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join live, you can absolutely join after the fact and get an asynchronous CEU. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.